When my son Marcus told me to find somewhere else to start over. You're no longer needed here. I packed my bags with the same quiet dignity I'd maintained for 45 years. 3 days later, I sat in attorney Patricia Williams' office, discovering that my late husband had played the longest chess game in history. Marcus was about to learn that sometimes the overlooked piece controls the entire board. If you're reading this, please share your thoughts and let me know where you're from. Let me tell you how I went from homeless widow to the woman holding all the cards. This story has more twists than a mountain highway. 2 months ago, I was Eleanor Hartwell, devoted wife of 45 years and mother to one spectacularly ungrateful son. When Daniel died of complications following surgery at 73, I thought my world was ending. Marcus swooped in during my grief like a vulture in designer clothes, cooing about how difficult this must be for me. "Mother, you can't possibly manage this estate alone," he'd said, his voice dripping with fake concern. "The grounds, the maintenance, all those memories. It's not healthy." I should have seen the calculation behind his concern. Marcus had always been Daniel's favorite, his accomplished son who could do no wrong. When he married that corporate lawyer, Stephanie, and started producing grandchildren, Daniel doted on them all. Meanwhile, I was just the woman who cooked and cleaned and kept everything running smoothly. After the funeral, Marcus became increasingly insistent about my situation. He'd bring Stephanie over for family dinners where they'd corner me with real estate pamphlets and retirement community brochures. "Mother, these places are wonderful. You'd have people your own age, activities, no responsibilities." What they meant was no inheritance to split, no inconvenient mother to deal with. The final blow came last Tuesday. I'd been living in what Marcus now called the family property for 6 weeks since Daniel's death, still unable to enter our bedroom because I couldn't bear to pack up our shared possessions. Marcus arrived unannounced with Stephanie and several large moving boxes. "Mother, we've made a decision. Stephanie got the partnership and we need to move into town immediately. This house is perfect for us." I stared at him, not quite comprehending. "Move in? But this is my home." Marcus's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the cold calculation underneath. "Actually, Mother, according to Father's will, I inherited everything. The house, the investments, all of it. I've been letting you stay here out of kindness, but it's time for you to find your own place." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Marcus, surely there's been some mistake." "No mistake. Father knew I'd take better care of his legacy than you ever could. You never understood money or investments. You were just the wife. Just the wife." 45 years reduced to those 3 words. That's when he delivered the killing blow. "Find somewhere else to start over. You're no longer needed here." I packed my things in 2 days. 45 years of marriage fitting into 3 suitcases and a small box of photos. Marcus watched from the doorway, checking his watch like I was making him late for something important. "There's a nice senior complex on Elm Street," he offered with the enthusiasm of someone recommending a decent restaurant. "Very affordable. I'm sure they have openings." Affordable. My son was inheriting $38 million, and he was suggesting I check into what was essentially a welfare facility for the elderly. Stephanie loaded my suitcases into their Mercedes with the efficiency of someone disposing of garbage. "Eleanor, you'll love having your independence again," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "No more worrying about house maintenance or property taxes. No more home." She meant the Riverside Motel was exactly what you'd expect from a place charging $55 a night. Thin walls, thinner towels, and a carpet that had seen better decades. Marcus handed me $300 in cash like he was tipping a hotel maid. "This should cover you for a few days while you get settled," he said. I'll have Stephanie transfer some money into your account once we sort through father's paperwork. Some money from my own inheritance. After they left, I sat on the sagging mattress and tried to process what had just happened. In the span of 3 hours, I'd gone from grieving widow to homeless senior citizen. The woman I'd raised, loved, and sacrificed for had discarded me like an expired prescription. But as I sat there in that depressing motel room, something began nagging at me. Daniel had always been meticulous about his affairs, obsessively organized about important documents. He'd shown me the will years ago, explaining his wishes, making sure I understood everything. And I was absolutely certain that's not what it had said. Daniel had been many things traditional, sometimes stubborn, occasionally patronizing about money matters, but he wasn't cruel. The man who'd held my hand through my mother's death, who'd surprised me with flowers every anniversary, wouldn't have left me destitute. The next morning, I used the motel's Wi-Fi to search for Daniel's attorney, Lawrence Mitchell. His office was downtown, a 30-minute bus ride that cost me precious cash, but felt necessary. Lawrence Mitchell was a distinguished man in his 70s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. When his secretary announced that Mrs. Hartwell was here about her husband's estate, he looked genuinely surprised. "Eleanor, my dear, I was wondering when you'd come in. I tried calling your house several times, but Marcus said you were traveling." Traveling? That's what my son had told him. "Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you about Daniel's will." He looked puzzled. "Of course. Didn't Marcus provide you with your copy?" I gave him the original and several copies after the reading. My stomach dropped. "There was a reading. Eleanor, you were supposed to be there. Marcus said you were too distraught, that he'd handle everything and make sure you received your inheritance." The blood drained from my face as the reality hit me. "Mr. Mitchell, I was never told about any reading. Marcus told me he inherited everything." Lawrence Mitchell's expression shifted from confusion to alarm. He reached for a thick file folder, his movements suddenly urgent. "Eleanor, that's impossible. Your husband's will is very specific about your inheritance." He pulled out a document. I recognized Daniel's neat signature at the bottom, witnessed and notarized. But as Lawrence began reading, I realized Marcus had lied about everything. I, Daniel James Hartwell, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath to my beloved wife Eleanor Marie Hartwell the following: our primary residence at 1247 Willowbrook Lane, including all furnishings and personal effects. Additionally, I leave her 75% of all financial assets, investments, and accounts totaling approximately $28 million. My head started spinning. $28 million. The house. 75% of everything. Lawrence continued reading, his voice growing more serious. To my son, Marcus Daniel Hartwell, I leave $10 million to be held in trust with distributions beginning on his 40th birthday, contingent upon his treatment of his mother following my death, contingent upon his treatment of me. Daniel had known. Somehow he'd known exactly what Marcus would try to do. "Mr. Mitchell," I whispered. "Marcus told me I inherited nothing. He moved into my house. He gave me $300 and suggested I find a senior facility." The elderly lawyer's face flushed with anger. "Eleanor, what Marcus has done is called elder abuse and fraud. He's committed multiple felonies. But he had legal documents. He showed me papers. Forged, most likely, or documents from an earlier draft. Your husband updated his will 8 months before his death, specifically because he was concerned about Marcus's attitude toward money and his sense of entitlement. There's more, Eleanor. The trust provision for Marcus specifically states that if he fails to treat you with respect and dignity following my death, the entire $10 million reverts to you instead." I stared at him in shock. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying your son just cost himself $10 million. His inheritance is now yours as well. You're not inheriting 28 million, Eleanor. You're inheriting $38 million plus the house and all personal property. The irony was so perfect. It was almost funny. Marcus had been so eager to claim his inheritance that he'd triggered the exact clause designed to protect me from his greed. What do I do now? I asked, my voice barely steady. Lawrence smiled, and for the first time since Daniel's death, I saw genuine warmth directed at me. Now, my dear, we call the police about the fraud. And then we call Marcus and inform him that he's about to receive the shock of his life. Within 2 hours, every account had been frozen. Marcus's credit cards linked to what he thought were his new inheritance accounts were declined. The house utilities, which he'd already transferred to his name, were suspended pending ownership verification. My phone rang at exactly 4:15 p.m. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. Mother, where are you? There's some kind of mix-up with the bank accounts. They're saying Father's assets are frozen. Hello, Marcus. I'm sitting in Lawrence Mitchell's office. You remember him? Father's attorney, the one who read the real will to an empty room while you told him I was traveling. Silence. Then, Mother, I don't know what you think you discovered, but I discovered that you're a liar and a thief, sweetheart. I also discovered that your father was much smarter than either of us realized. You don't understand. I was protecting you from the complexity of managing all that money. You've never had to deal with investments. I understand perfectly. You forged legal documents, committed fraud, and threw your 70-year-old mother out of her own house because you thought I was too stupid to notice. Voice turned sharp, desperate. Mother, you're confused. The grief has been overwhelming, and someone is obviously taking advantage of your emotional state. The audacity was breathtaking. Even caught red-handed, Marcus was trying to manipulate me. Marcus, dear, let me clarify something for you. Not only did you never inherit anything, but your actual inheritance, the 10 million your father left you, is now mine as well, thanks to a lovely clause he included about treating me with dignity and respect. Impossible. Detective Johnson is sitting right here. You'd like to discuss the impossibility of fraud charges with. The phone went quiet. I could almost hear Marcus's mind racing, calculating, searching for an angle. Mother, please, can we meet somewhere and talk about this reasonably? I'm sure we can work something out. Oh, we'll definitely be meeting soon at the courthouse when you're arraigned. You wouldn't dare press charges against your own son. Something cold and final crystallized in my chest. Watch me. The police arrested Marcus at 9:15 p.m. while he was having dinner at an expensive restaurant, apparently celebrating his inheritance with Stephanie and another couple. According to Detective Johnson, he screamed about false arrest and demanded to call his lawyer. Stephanie was arrested at her law firm the next morning. The forensic accountant had traced the forged documents to a printing company Stephanie's firm had used before. Apparently, my daughter-in-law had quite the criminal record that Marcus either didn't know about or chose to ignore. I spent my first night back in my house in 45 years, sleeping in the master bedroom. Marcus had already moved his belongings into the space. I packed everything into garbage bags and left them on the front porch. The house felt different now, not because Daniel was gone, but because I was finally seeing it as mine. For decades, I'd maintained it as Daniel's sanctuary, designed around his preferences. Now I realized how little of me had ever been reflected in these rooms. That was about to change. 3 days after the arrests, Marcus's mother-in-law showed up at my door. Patricia Hayes was everything I'd expected, perfectly groomed, dripping with jewelry, and radiating entitlement. Eleanor, we need to discuss this situation rationally, she said. Stephanie made some poor choices, obviously, but prosecuting her seems rather vindictive, don't you think? Vindictive? Your daughter helped steal my inheritance and threw me out of my own house. Stephanie's family is prepared to compensate you for your inconvenience. Let's say $3 million in exchange for dropping the charges against Stephanie. $3 million to forgive the woman who'd helped steal $38 million from me. Mrs. Hayes, your daughter participated in a scheme that cost me everything I owned. You think $3 million covers that? Eleanor, be realistic. Stephanie has a career, children, reputation to maintain. Sending her to prison serves no one. It serves justice. Very well, she said finally. But you should know that Stephanie's legal team has found some interesting information about your husband's business practices. It would be unfortunate if that became public during the trial. After she left, I called Lawrence immediately. That evening, I began going through Daniel's files systematically. By midnight, I discovered something that changed everything I thought I knew about my husband. The private investigator Lawrence recommended spent 6 hours in Daniel's study, photographing documents and building what she called the real picture of my husband's business empire. Mrs. Hartwell, your husband was running a sophisticated money laundering operation through his consulting firm. The Ali revelation hit me like a physical blow. But there was more. Double quotes, Mrs. Hartwell. There's something else you should know. Your husband wasn't just laundering money. He was an FBI informant. The world tilted sideways. For 10 years, he was providing information about criminal operations while appearing to facilitate their money laundering. Everything he left you was earned through legitimate federal cooperation. Marcus and Stephanie had tried to blackmail me with information that would have actually exonerated my husband. Agent Rodriguez. What happens now? Now you get your money back. Your son and daughter-in-law face federal charges, and you get to decide what kind of life you want to build with your legitimate inheritance. 8 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my renovated house, making coffee. The morning sun streamed through new windows, illuminating countertops I'd chosen myself for the first time in 45 years. The past 8 months had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media interviews, and personal transformation. Marcus and Stephanie were each serving 20-month federal sentences. The news coverage had made me something of a celebrity in elder advocacy circles. The Eleanor Hartwell Foundation for Elder Justice had become my primary focus. Using $18 million of my inheritance, we were funding legal aid for seniors facing family financial abuse. My story had captured media attention. The Mother's Justice, an American crime story, was being developed as a limited series, with proceeds going to elder advocacy organizations. Marcus had written me 23 letters from federal prison. I'd stopped reading them after the first few. In my art studio formerly, Daniel's Den, I uncovered my latest painting, a self-portrait of a woman standing in bright sunlight, her face turned toward the future. The woman in the painting looked nothing like the grieving widow who'd packed her life into 3 suitcases 8 months ago. This woman looked powerful, independent, unafraid. She looked like someone who'd learned that the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming everything your enemies never thought you could be. Outside, the sun was setting behind trees I'd planted myself, in soil that belonged to me, on property I'd defended through intelligence and courage. Tomorrow I'd continue building the life I'd chosen, rather than the life others had planned for me. And if Marcus wanted to rebuild a relationship with this woman, he'd better bring a lot more than prison letters and hollow apologies. He'd better bring a complete transformation, one that matched my own. Thank you for reading. Please share your thoughts below, and let me know where you're from. Remember, you are stronger than you know, and it's never too late to reclaim your power.